Okay, we'd ask that everyone please find their seats and we'll begin tonight's event, our 2023 Candidate Forum. We want to thank Birch Bay Bible Community Church for hosting this evening. And of course, all of our candidates for being here. My name is Sasha Sanguinetti. I'll be the moderator this evening. This is a citizens organized candidate forum presented by the Birch Bay Chamber of Commerce and the Northern Light. Thank you to Birch Bay Bible Community Church for hosting tonight's event. Our purpose this evening is to allow the candidates to inform and educate the citizens of Birch Bay and Blaine of their plans and strategies moving forward, if elected. The ultimate goal is a civilized and productive discussion focused on improving the overall quality of life in our area. Following tonight's flag salute, we ask that all of the candidates please remain standing. And with that said, if everyone would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The residents of Blaine and Birch Bay have come together to find out who you are and why they should vote for you. The panel participants are, in the race for Whatcom County Executive, Mr. Satpal Sidhu and Mr. Dan Purdy. In the race for Whatcom County Sheriff, Mr. Doug Chadwick and Mr. Donnell Tanksley. In the race for Whatcom County Council District 5, Mr. Ben Ellenboss and Miss Jackie Dexter. And for Whatcom County Council at Large B, Miss Hannah Ordos and Mr. John Scanlon. So thank you all for being here, and you may be seated. Before we begin, we ask that everyone please set the mobile phones to stun if we could. Audience members have received note cards in which to submit questions to the candidates. When submitting a question, we ask the following. 1, please write legibly so we can read it. 2, let's keep the discussion civil and respectful. Please, no personal attacks. Focus on current relevant issues. While we'll likely not have time to address every question submitted, every effort will be made to cover all of the pertinent topics. Some questions have been submitted in advance and have already been reviewed for relevance. Audience-submitted questions this evening will be reviewed and selected by Danielle and by Molly and Dora Lee as well. If you have a question to submit, just simply hold up your note card and they will track you down. Each candidate will have a maximum of 2 minutes to introduce themselves and give an opening statement, and then they'll have a maximum of 2 minutes to answer questions directed at them or their race. In the event a question is addressed to multiple candidates at the same time, again, we ask that each participant limit their responses to 2 minutes and the optional 1-minute rebuttal. Our timer this evening is Pastor Tim, a seasoned veteran at this. They'll hold up a yellow card to let the speaker know they have 30 seconds remaining. The red card means time is up, and a bell will be utilized if necessary. So let's begin with the introductions. Again, each participant with 2 minutes to introduce themselves, and we'll start at this end of the table with Mr. Satpal Sidhu.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for the Chamber of Commerce to organize this. I think after 3 years of COVID, it's nice to be in person and have this discussion. The Zoom doesn't do a good job, but I think we are over that. My name is Satpal Sidhu. I grew up in India. I'm a citizen of India, I'm a citizen of Canada, and then I've been here almost 37 years in Whatcom County. And I came back in 1978. I came to this country with $5 but 3 degrees. Whatever I am today is that this country has given to me. And when I retired, after working worldwide, I thought that what is the good way to give back to my community? And this is not the first thought comes to people's mind to become a politician, to give back to the community. This is a hard job, but I thought that things I have learned, I can contribute positively to this community. And I have. I was on the council for 5 years, then I became county executive. I was pressure tested because I was on the job for 2 months. COVID started, floods came, and other things happened. But I held a steady hand, as well as the county's financial situation. So I think I'm ready for another term. Thank you very much.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Dan Purdy. I'm running for Whatcom County Executive. I've worked for 5 Fortune 500 companies, and my employer's advisory firm has over $1 billion in client revenues under management. I'm an experienced entrepreneur, and I'm a published author. I've owned and operated 4 small businesses since 2005, both in the US and British Columbia. I now help others grow their ventures by offering free advising sessions, business valuation and health assessments, training and learning management programs, amongst other free resources and tools. The county executive is the CEO of the county, and I offer real-world experience in this position. I'll continue to meet with everyone at the table because we need collaborative efforts, cultivated experience, and we need that to progress our county forward. I'm the most qualified for this job because of my past and present experience. Whatcom County is dealing with a host of issues, which includes public safety, accountability at the highest levels of government, the rising cost of living, and we need more sensible environmental policy. I've recently launched a 100-day plan, which I'd love to talk with you about in the forum afterwards, but it has 6 points on how we can get this county back on track. I look forward to meeting each of you.
Good evening. My name is Doug Chadwick. I also want to thank the Birch Bay Chamber of Commerce for hosting this to educate the voters on issues related to public safety in Whatcom County. I'm a lifelong resident. I'm the current undersheriff, and I'm a 29-year veteran of the Whatcom County Sheriff's Office. Not only have I held every rank in the Sheriff's Office except for elected sheriff, but in 1994 I started as a patrol deputy. I moved up, and along the way I've had the opportunity to not only work as a sergeant, as a lieutenant, as a chief prior to my assignment as undersheriff, but I was a field training officer. I was a firearms instructor. I was a narcotics detective. I've worked in 2 federal task forces targeting high-level drug trafficking organizations that are bringing dangerous drugs into this community. I also worked in a task force that targeted criminal gangs that were involved in kidnapping, extortion, theft, and prostitution. So I work very closely with our federal partners, and being a border county, that's essential that we have that working relationship with not just local law enforcement agencies, but also our state and federal partners to address some of the issues that are directly impacting Whatcom County coming across the line from Canada. As a lifelong resident and a law enforcement professional, I care deeply about my community, and I am committed to keeping Whatcom County safe. I'm the only candidate for sheriff that has the depth of experience and knowledge to step into the role of sheriff on day one and lead us a seamless transition to maintain public safety. I am proud to have the endorsement of our sheriff for the last 20 years, Sheriff Bill Elfo, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
And good evening, and thank the Chamber for hosting this. I'm Donnell Tanksley, the current Chief of Police with the City of Blaine and candidate for Whatcom County Sheriff. The City of Blaine has a long history with the Sheriff's Department. In fact, our current Sheriff Bill Elfo was the Chief of Police of Blaine prior to being elected 20 years ago. I've been in law enforcement for 30 years. The majority of my career, 21 years, was at the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department, which is one of the largest police agencies in the country. It's about the 38th largest. I've also spent 22 years in the military. I'm a retired veteran and a lifelong member and lifetime member of the American Legion. I also hold several degrees, starting with a master's degree all the way down to an associate's, 6 formal degrees, and also educated by FBI LEADA executive certification course. And then also, I have several other certifications to include fair and impartial policing. So one of the reasons why I'm running for sheriff of Whatcom County is to make sure that we do have safe communities, to make sure that we're able to have a safe jail, a humane jail, to make sure that each part of Whatcom County, whether it's Van Zandt, Acme, or where I used to live in Kendall, that we have the appropriate services to include Birch Bay. So I bring a broad range of experience to this position. Thank you.
Hi, is this thing on? Yeah. Hi, I'm Ben Ellenboss. I'm your current 5th District representative on the County Council. I grew up in Linden. I graduated from Linden High School. I went to Western Washington University, and I did the majority of my coursework at Huxley College of the Environment and got my degree in natural sciences. My last final at Western was on June 12th of 2001. I started at the BP Cherry Point refinery on June 13th of 2001. So I was very fortunate there to move right from college into a career that's helped me support my family. I raised my children and my cattle in Custer, and I drive by this church every day on my way to work. In the 5th District, we produce the things that people need every day, and we do it in the most environmentally conscious manner in the entire world. And I'm proud to be a part of that. I started out, I guess, what you would call a political career when I got appointed to the Whatcom County Planning Commission, where I served a few years. After that, I was elected to the 2015 Charter Review Commission, where I was unanimously elected by all 15 commission, well, 14, because I guess I voted for myself, but I didn't really vote, to be the chair of that commission, where all of our amendments passed, I believe. And then in 2019, I was elected to serve on the council representing the 5th District. And we'll get into the issues shortly. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Birch Bay Commerce and Northern Light, for putting this all together. My name is Jackie Dexter, and I am a mother, a wife, and a farmer, both on land and sea. I have a small micro farm between here and Blaine, where me and my husband raise our 2 kids. We have ducks, chickens, goats, and we raise some sheep with my business partner out in the county. I also work for the Drayton Harbor Oyster Company on the farm. I work in sustainable aquaculture every single day. And I'm also in the midst of beginning a kelp farm here in Birch Bay, and I want to provide more climate action in the face of climate change. I think we've had enough time talking about it, that we have future generations that are gonna have whatever we give them, and I wanna try and improve whatever we can. I too went to Western Washington University. I graduated in 2007 with my bachelor's in biology. I also attended Bellingham Technical College in fisheries and aquaculture, where I was immediately hired by the Swinomish Indian tribal community in LaConner. There, I worked with Native Olympia oyster restoration work and was published in the Journal of Shellfish Research in 2015. I've been working for the Drayton Harbor Oyster Company for the last 5 years, and I'm also on the board of the Whatcom Marine Resource Committee. I'm on my 2nd year now as an economic seat. I work with the kelp surveys and the Native Olympia oyster restoration work as well. Can tell the Native Olympia oyster has a special place in my heart. There's only 5% of its historical levels left, so I think we should do it all that we can to preserve it. I'm also a hunter and a fisher in my free time, and I forage for fungus, medicinals, and edibles. I would love to host a park session sometime and take all us locals out. You can tell that I'm a big stakeholder in this community, and I look forward to representing you. Thank you.
Okay. Excuse me. So thank you, everyone, for this great opportunity to have a conversation with you. My name is Hannah Ortis. I'm running for the Whatcom County Council at-large position. I graduated from Nooksack High School, and I also graduated from Western, so I think we have a theme going on here. Yeah. I met the love of my life in this community 18 years ago. We have 3 children, 12, 16, and my bonus stepson, who's 22. He's my favorite because he still remembers me on Mother's Day. So, I held leadership positions in 4 different industries, so it's likely that I have worked with or alongside one of your family members or even maybe one of you. I serve on the North Sound Behavioral Health Advisory Board, so that's something that's very near and dear to my heart. I'm a Be the One mentor for high school girls, and I also do a lot of parent volunteering. I think what uniquely qualifies me for this position is that I was raised in the county and I lived most of my adult life in Bellingham too, so I have a perspective of the challenges that we face and that how each community within Whatcom County needs to be handled just a little differently. So our rural communities are different from our urban communities. And also too, as I'm looking out at the audience, I know a lot of you. Some of you I'm even recent or newly family members with, so hello Freemans. I think what I want all of you to know is that I'm just like you. I am a community member who cares deeply about what's happening in our community. I want this to be a great place for us now, but also a great place for our children and our grandchildren in the future. So I look forward for the opportunity to serve you.
Hi everyone, my name is John Scanlon. I'm running for Whatcom County Council at Large, Position B. Folks over here, I'll lean over to say hi behind the balloons. But I grew up in rooms like this. My parents were very involved in the local community where I grew up. My dad was the business manager for our school district, constantly at school board meetings. My mom was a local elected official, elected to our library board in my hometown. My grandmother was on every board commission in town, and my family taught me to be involved in my community and led me into my career of public service. I have 20 years of experience in public policy. I worked in state and federal government early in my career. I worked for a governor. I worked for a United States senator. I represented our country abroad at the State Department, negotiating economic agreements across the Asia-Pacific region. I spent a dozen years running human rights advocacy campaigns and working with humanitarian aid organizations around the world. And currently, I do consulting work with indigenous communities all across the world. I'm active in our community. I live in Bellingham, where I serve on a city commission that helps with affordable housing and homelessness services. We have an affordability crisis in our county. We have a homelessness crisis in our county. These are issues I want to work on countywide. That's why I'm running for county council. I also serve on local nonprofit boards and want to be able to partner with the nonprofit community, which does so much great work all across our county. In about a week, maybe by the end of next week, you'll receive your ballot in the mail. And I would love to have your vote. Check out my website, electjohnscanlon.com. I have materials out in the lobby. You'll be able to see my endorsements. Yesterday, I was endorsed by Cascadia Daily News. I'm endorsed by the 3 legislators that represent us in the 42nd Legislative District. I'm endorsed by Blaine Mayor Mary Lou Stewart, former Blaine City Council member Jamie Arnett, who's now on our Public Utility District, and so many others. So check out my website to learn more, and I'd be happy to answer any questions tonight. Thank you.
Okay, once again, thank you all for being here. Now let's discuss some of the issues and some of the questions that have come up. We'll begin with the county executive race. First question. The population of Birch Bay has nearly doubled since the 2008 feasibility study concluded incorporating as a new city was financially feasible. Under your leadership, how will the county support Birch Bay in exploring the possible benefits of becoming a city? And will you help us produce an updated feasibility study? We'll start with Mr. Satpal Sidhu.
Thank you. It's a very pertinent question. We just had a meeting with the Chamber of Commerce. Danielle is here, and the committee formed who would like to incorporate Birch Bay into city. Myself, my staff was present. I think we spent an hour and a half discussing this. And we, as a county, it has nothing to do with me as a person. This is as like county executive or administration and our cities. I don't think county has any issue with Birch Bay becoming a city. Birch Bay is bigger than Blaine, and Blaine is already city. So, I mean, that shows the growth of it. We laid out a pathway that how they can start, form a committee, get a consensus done within your community, and we will help with bringing all the nuances of how much it will cost, how the governance will happen. Having a self-government is not easy and it's not cheaper. If you think you can save money or taxes, you are in charge of your own house. So sometimes you can come and tell the county that, oh, you don't do this or give us this, but then you are in charge of your own. And it takes time to mature. It'll take 10, 15 years for any city, new city, to become a city. So with those precautions, we are all for it if the community wants to do it. So we offered help all the time during this process. Anytime you need help from county or our legal or our legislative body, we will provide you that help. But we're not going to take a side that you should become a city or should not become a city. That's entirely your decision. Thank you.
Mr. Purdy, 2 minutes.
I think it's fantastic that Birch Bay wants to exercise its American right and to self-govern and to bring the people together and talk about the issues. In reading the 2008 feasibility plan, it seems like you have 3 options. You can be part of Blaine, you can be your own in Birch Bay, or you can do nothing and remain unincorporated Whatcom. Whatever you decide, I think, is the right answer. To the question of whether or not the city should, or rather the county should participate, the answer is absolutely. Whatcom County is only 230,000 people, and Birch Bay is a prominent area of that as well. So I think that the county needs to be involved. I would say that we need to refresh that feasibility study. You'll remember in 2008, in the spring, I should say in the fall of 2008, that's when Lehman Brothers went out. We experienced a recession. We also have had COVID since then, and we're going to be experiencing a mild recession here. Most economic experts would agree. So refreshing those costs, making sure that you have all of the information for the citizens and the residents here to make a decision, I think you're on the right track, but I applaud you for wanting to do the grassroots effort. A couple weeks ago, I met with the Chamber, and I specifically spoke with Danielle and Sasha and Matt and others, and Dave. I walked around, and I saw what was happening over at Terrell Creek and some of the flooding that's happening there. You've got some significant issues, especially with the new berm that was installed as the water splashes up and heads south along Terrell Creek. Some culverts are plugged. There's some roadway there that needs to be repaired. It's been like that for several months, if not maybe a couple of years. I think these are all of the things that the county has to step up and take an interest in because you obviously pay your tax dollars and you need to have that service from the county.
Moving on to the sheriff's race. What are your thoughts on the current jail situation in Whatcom County, and what is your vision moving forward? We'll start with Mr. Chadwick.
Well, the current jail has been inadequate for over 20 years. I know our current sheriff's been working on that since he was first elected. We absolutely need a appropriately sized, safe, and humane jail. And that's not just for the offenders that are there, but that's for the corrections staff that work there every day, as well as to protect the community at large. We have to find a balance between grace and accountability. And I think right now what we're seeing is some people, because there's no consequences, are continuing to commit crimes. And it's not a large part. There's always a small part of our population that commits the majority of those crimes. But we need to be able to protect the public, and right now we're not adequately able to do that just because we don't have the capacity in the current jail. Moving forward with the new jail, I am hopeful that in November, when you have the opportunity to vote, you do so for a safe and humane jail that has a behavioral care center, because that's what we need. Again, it's that we need to have compassion and help those that we can help, but we also need to have that accountability piece. So I envision a jail that has the behavioral care center to provide programs and treatment for people in mental health crisis, people that are suffering from substance use disorders. But I also see that in the interim, it's going to be 5 years if we approve a jail in November. So we need to have some interim steps. In that, how are we going to lower the population? So in the past, we've looked at contracting with other jails, but a lot of jails around the state are struggling with staffing just like we are in Whatcom County. So there's the potential for a temporary facility if that's what needed. And then I would also like to see a homeless navigation center next to the jail where people that are released, we have navigators, there's a warm handoff, and they go directly from jail to some sort of temporary housing where there's services and counselors instead of just walking back out on the streets and going back through that cycle. Thank you.
Mr. Tanksley, 2 minutes.
Well, I certainly approve that we need a new facility, but I would submit to you that a building is only one part of the solution that we're dealing with. So there's other things that's happening within the community that we also need to deal with in terms of the new jail. So for me, the purpose of a jail is to rehabilitate and reintegrate people back into society. So I'll tell you that 95% of the people that's incarcerated temporarily or long-term in the state of Washington is released. So while we should build a new jail, we should appropriate sufficient funds to the rehabilitation process. So that process would include things like substance use disorder treatment, behavioral health treatment, but also we need to focus on educational opportunities for someone that's inside the jail. I've been talking with several unions to see if we could get some pre-apprenticeship programs while people are incarcerated. A lot of people that are arrested don't have an ID. How can we start those services while they're incarcerated? So absolutely, we do need a new jail, but we also need a jail planner. If it's passed, we need a plan to make sure that all the funding is spent the way we say we're going to spend it. We need to make sure that it's transparent. So absolutely, I do believe we need a new facility, but there's some other things in terms of services that we need to fully invest in. Thank you.
Moving on to County Council District 5 seat. This question for you. Birch Bay often feels out of the loop with issues at the county level. How do you think Whatcom County government can improve their engagement with the Birch Bay community? We'll start with Mr. Ellenboss.
We've seen this to be a huge problem, and not just in Whatcom County. It occurs everywhere. We saw it with the stop, just the simple stop sign that was put in by the Birch Bay Village, and we saw it on Hannigan Road with the detour from Mount Baker Highway. We have a public hearing, and no one shows up. We should clue in right then that these are big issues that really affect people, and when no one's showing up, we should know that they weren't adequately notified. We need to get outside of the box. There's state law and public participation plans, and it's dictated on how we will communicate with the community. But those are the baseline things that we do, and we need to meet people where they're at. I see people on Facebook. I try not to engage too much on Facebook because it can be not productive. However, in these community pages, Public Works, our council, the executive's office, we can absolutely put our notices in the community pages that affect people. If you look at the Blaine and Birch Bay community page, there's something like 8,000 people that are in that page, and it wouldn't be that hard for Public Works to say, hey, we're having this meeting, it's going to be here. We all know you don't read the Bellingham Herald. So we need to meet you guys where you're at, and we need to get with the times. Obviously, the internet is not our only form of communication that we can do because not everybody embraces technology, but it tends to be where people are, and if we can be there, I think we'll serve the community better and help people be involved in their local government.
Ms. Dexter, 2 minutes.
Yes, I agree that Birch Bay has been ignored and has not had the representation and support that it needs. And I feel that if the public wants to be incorporated, I fully support that. so that we can make sure that the dollars spent here can be returned back to the community for the most important services that you need: infrastructure, transportation, etc. I will continue to be a present member in the community. I will be continuing to be present at any and all meetings where necessary. And yes, we need to improve the communication, and we can definitely look into many outlets of that. I would like to entertain the idea of some true community centers around here. I know that when I was a Girl Scout troop leader in Blaine, we had a really difficult time of finding a public space where we could hold meetings. I'm also involved tightly with the PTO and would love to have a community center where we have a kitchen and we could go in there and volunteer time to cut up vegetables and produce for the children. I am also excited that in hopes that Birch Bay does have an elementary school built here. I think that we need to support our kids in the Birch Bay neighborhoods, and our school district in Blaine is very overcrowded, and I look forward to being a part of that in the future. And any other kinds of public services that need to be brought to the Birch Bay community, I am fully ready to support you and bring those to the council and get solutions made with the state and federal agencies and stakeholders needed. Thank you.
All right, moving on to the at-large B position on the council. The issue of homelessness and displaced people affect all districts in Whatcom County. What is your plan to address this issue if you're elected to the council? And we'll start with Ms. Ortis.
Thank you for that question. Homelessness is a big issue, and I think it's multifaceted, and it's very complex. I think that if there was a simple solution to homelessness, we would have already resolved this. I think the important thing is engaging with the community. We need to be really good listeners about what our communities need. I think as we're talking in this forum, homelessness also can be addressed at each individual community level. So I think a lot of times when we think our homelessness situation, we think of the Walmart encampment. There's so many other areas other than just that. We have families that are one paycheck away from ending up in a homeless situation. We need to think about how we stabilize them so that they're not another statistic that we're facing. I think one of the things too with our homeless situation is our services. So as I mentioned, I'm part of the North Sound Behavioral Health Advisory Board. We have funding for services to help in our crisis situation, whether it's substance abuse or behavioral health. What we need to do is focus on our infrastructure as well, and people to do those services. So it is a lot of work to reach this community. It's a burnout type of job, and so I think developing the infrastructure, encouraging, incentivizing people to do the work, we can start chipping away at it.
It's Mr. Scanlon.
Thank you for so as I said earlier, I serve on a Bellingham City Commission that helps with affordable housing and homelessness, and have learned a lot about some of the things that we see in the largest homelessness crisis in our county in Bellingham. And this is a county-wide issue. There are children who grew up all across this county that live on the streets of Bellingham and all across our county. So I think this is something where we all need to chip in and help out, all the 7 cities working together with the county. We have some models that are working. I'm an optimist. I think that we have the resources, the talent, the know-how, and the community to solve this problem. The latest count showed that there are a little over 1,000 people who live outside every single night in our county. That's probably an undercount. I think that's a number that we can reduce to 0. And I think that takes all of us working together. And some of the models that we're seeing that are working are tiny home villages. The data is showing that the 3 tiny home villages in Bellingham, people are coming out of camps and off the streets into tiny home villages, getting stable, and then ending up in permanent supportive housing. We need to do a lot more of that. And there is a great proposal out there about how to expand that model all across our county. In the middle of the last decade, the United States saw significant reductions in veteran homelessness all across this country, and it showed what happens if we really pinpoint some of the issues within specific communities. So I think we need to look at some of the issues that we have in our community, looking at the fentanyl crisis and the need for substance treatment, medically assisted treatment all across this county, and behavioral health services. So we need to combine that with tiny home villages and permanent housing, and I think that'll do a lot of it to help us get down to zero.
Thank you. And once again, we remind the audience that you have been supplied with cards that you can submit questions. If you have a question, just simply hold the card up and we will collect it and make sure it's part of the program. Back to the sheriff's race. Property crime is on the rise and a concern to all Birch Bay residents. What needs to be done with regards to rising crime, particularly property crime? And we'll start with Mr. Tanksley.
Sure, and I'm very sorry that that's happening to not only the residents of Birch Bay, but anywhere in Whatcom County. But I believe one of the things that we could do as a county is take a look at exactly where the crimes are happening as an entire county. So right now, we are kind of decentralized with regard to how we track crime. Now, we do have some hotspot sheets, but I do believe that each jurisdiction together could actually look at the numbers, take a look at the locations, take a look at the property that's being stolen, try to track some of that property together, and come up with a solution together as a county. For example, there's some counties down south that they have small task forces, and these are not permanent task forces, together to work these issues. In fact, just today down in Snow County, 3 different jurisdictions got together and they actually had 2 or 3 officers from each jurisdiction, and then they went out together to hit some of these spots. So in St. Louis, I've experienced doing that. I was the commander of a special operations task force in South St. Louis that patrolled an area of about 100,000 people, and that's exactly what we did. So I believe it's coming together, but also making sure that we contact our community members to do full investigations, follow-up investigations as best we can. So thank you.
Mr. Chadwick, 2 minutes.
Well, thank you. As far as property crime rising, and it's not just here in Birch Bay, we're seeing it all over Whatcom County. I looked at the Whatcom County Sheriff's Office has a crime stats dashboard, and over the last 6 months, we have seen increases in property crimes, vandalisms, things like that. And it's probably no surprise a lot of that is driven by the drug issue we have here in Whatcom County. The fentanyl epidemic is ravaging our community, and people are trying to support their addiction, and they're doing that by taking things that don't belong to them. And I know just recently here, the Sheriff's Office, through our detectives, recovered a whole lot of electric bikes that were stolen here in Birch Bay. And obviously, we have the Birch Bay Neighborhood Deputy. That program was implemented in 2006 here in Birch Bay. Unfortunately, our current deputy is now a detective. He's in the back room here, and he can certainly work to help Birch Bay still, and we have a new one coming online in January. But we have to address the drug issue if we want to look at addressing the issue with property crimes. So that's something I could work on. We do have a crime analyst at the Sheriff's Office, and we have had for over 15 years, and he does identify hot spots. We actually have that same crime stats program shows us a heat map on where, and we can see that, and we've targeted those areas in the past. Right now, we've had some staffing issues. Whatcom County is a large county, over 2,500 square miles, larger than the state of Delaware. So we have to target that, but when I was the chief criminal deputy, we would look at the stats and we would assign resources to target those areas, and we called them targeted patrol areas. And they were very effective, not just for warrants, but we identified suspects, MOs, and we're very effective in that. We also use our drug task force and the knowledge they have through their informants who have a network that they're able to provide information to us because they're part of that culture. Thank you.
Okay, back to our friends on this end of the table. We had some historic flooding in Birch Bay over the last couple of years. What do you feel are the first conversations that need to be had regarding the recent historic flooding and the potential future flooding in Birch Bay? We'll start with Mr. Purdy.
Historic flooding means a couple of things. To the county, it means Everson, Nooksack, Sumas, and others. To Birch Bay, it means what happened here in December of 2022. You have a beautiful new berm out there, 1.56 miles, I believe. Maybe there's need for a second, because now as the waves come in, it slaps up against the berm and it flows south towards Terrell Creek. I've walked those properties, I've walked those streets, I've seen the devastation. Talked to one of your neighbors. She had the means, but she had to redo her entire house. She was one of the last houses to get flooded. Horrible situation. I feel like you need some improved infrastructure here in the city, but then also across the county, more direct to the question, we need an emergency preparedness fund. This is on the 100-day plan. We call it Dan's plan, because we don't have that at a county level now. This county has been flooded for decades. We've known about it, we've experienced it, and we still haven't made the preparations necessary. It's important that we have contracts with the various construction companies who already have the yellow iron and the laydown yards so that they're ready to go in the first few hours of deployment. As a county, the first hour and a half are critical to protecting human life and to preserving property. In addition to that, it's 3 days worth of those individuals that need to be housed, clothed, food, sheltered, watered, and whatnot. It's important that the county take a leadership position in this. And again, to date, the county has not done that. The reason you're feeling most likely that you've been neglected by the county is because others feel like that throughout the county as well. Talk to our members in Point Roberts. Talk to some of the unincorporated areas of Whatcom County. Some of the small cities even. It's time for a change.
Mr. Sadhu, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Let me talk about Birch Bay first. I think the development of Birch Bay, as you have been living there for a long time, some people may be there for 30, 40 years, if you track how the Birch Bay got developed, and the stormwater plan has been done in piecemeal basis, and nobody expected that it will grow to be 7,000, 8,000 people. And now, whatever things were not done 30 years ago, they are showing up at our doors right now. The Birch Bay area, the whole Birch Bay area up off Blaine Road needs a comprehensive stormwater plan, which will cost millions and millions of dollars, but that's not the issue is millions and millions of dollars, but that's what the planning is. So Mr. Purdy is very quick to blame that nothing has been done. I think that he needs a little humility, that without knowing the facts, throwing out things that people is not correct thing to look at the problem. The county has been flooded every year, 10 years, so nothing has been done. I think these are not correct statements. Yes, the Birch Bay does need a comprehensive stormwater plan, and we have asked the state and the federal people, and that we need some money to do this study. Until we have the complete study, because you are next to ocean and water is rising, ocean level is rising. Berm is not the problem. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our District 5 candidates. Birch Bay is growing rapidly, and consequently, so is the need for new infrastructure. However, we hear from many contractors and business people that working through planning and development at the county is increasingly difficult, with most concerned that the current system doesn't sufficiently serve the residents and is not sustainable in the long term. How do you feel this needs to be addressed? And we'll start with Ms. Dexter.
Better? Thanks. I cannot agree more that Birch Bay is growing, and we definitely need the infrastructure here to support that. There's going to be more coming because people cannot afford Bellingham, they cannot afford California, and they cannot afford Seattle, and they're going to keep coming to here because it's one of the last affordable places left. We all know this, and we need to be prepared for it. I think that we need to take a hard look at some of the zoning, and we need to work with planning and development and making sure that they have the support to be able to move those permitting processes faster, if possible and wherever possible. I completely understand because I'm trying to start a kelp farm actually in Birch Bay, and the permitting process is astounding. And one reason why I got into local politics is I want to improve that process, especially for sustainable industries. And I will work closely with the Planning and Development, the Building Alliance, and the Whatcom Housing Alliance and authorities. And also, I really would like to support Barry Buchanan's idea on a Whatcom housing fund. I think that we could allocate some more funds to the District 5 area, especially the unincorporated areas that need that extra support until if and when they want to become incorporated. Thank you.
Mr. Ellenboss, 2 minutes.
I don't think this question can be properly addressed in 2 minutes, but I'll give it a shot. As I mentioned before, I went to school at Huxley College of the Environment, and a lot of the folks I went to school with came out and were either working at Resources for Sustainable Communities as an activist, or they went into planning and development services, or they worked for the Department of Ecology. I was one of the only few kids at Huxley that kind of grew up on a farm and had sort of that real-world experience prior to being there, that when I was told something in college, I questioned everything. In fact, my professors would always give me 5 minutes at the end of class and they'd say, let's hear Ben's perspective on this. And I try to take a real world perspective. When I first got appointed to the Planning Commission way back in 2012 or 2013, whenever it was, this was an issue then. Folks would go to Planning and Development Services and they wouldn't get, depending on who they talked to at the front desk, they would get a different answer. And that's still a problem today. There's a myriad of reasons for that. A lot of it has to do with staffing issues. I've always been encouraging to the administration to have those difficult conversations with leadership at Planning and Development. I am the chair of the Planning and Development Committee on council, and I strive for land use policy that takes into account the need for people's habitat as well as salmon habitat, wildlife, all of the things. We have to have a balance. We can't strictly employ activists in our planning and development services and think that we're going to get a product that's going to balance the needs of the community. And until we have leadership in place that's willing to have that difficult conversation, implement policies within the planning and development services that everyone can follow and come to the same outcome when you come to the desk, then we'll continue to have these issues.
All right. And we'll move to the at-large B candidates. How do you prioritize rebuilding a productive economy in this county? What will you do so that the people who live here can prosper? We'll start with Mr. Scanlon.
Thank you. Earlier in my career, I worked for a state economic development agency and did this work, working with communities all across the state of Georgia when I lived there. And I think this is something we need to bring to Whatcom County, is that we have to look out to the future and think about what are the jobs that we want here, and how can we attract those jobs to our county? We've long been home of energy production that has helped to fuel the entire West Coast and the entire country. And I think we can be at the center of the energy transition in our economy. There already are some interesting things happening in our community, from the electric bus manufacturing coming into Ferndale, the marine battery technology firm that came into Fairhaven, solar panels that are made in this county. There's so much that we can do where we can attract businesses to our community. The Port Commission has done a study of the I-5 corridor in the county, looking at buildable lands and where it is that we can attract new business into our county. I think we should bring in some of that old school economic boosterism. and partner with the executive's office to go talk with companies that might want to move here so we can have those good jobs, those living wage jobs that we need to be able to afford to live in this beautiful place. So there's so much that I think we can do, and I'll bring my past experience in economic development into this position if elected.
Ms. Ortiz?
Thank you very much for that question. So I've lived here my entire life, and I've seen it become more and more difficult to find those types of jobs that allow us to be able to afford our homes, whether it's our mortgage or whether it's our rent. I think it's important that we are a place where we're easy to do business with. I think we need to look at the barriers to entry. I think we need to look at some of the restrictions that we place on businesses that want to come in and provide those living wage jobs to us. I think that we need to be accountable to how we zone and which businesses are allowed in those zoning areas so that future employers can trust that where they look to do business, they can actually end up doing that business. I think we need to take a hard look at supporting the organizations that we already have. I think it's important that we do things that are responsible for our environment, but we can do that as well as promoting a thriving economy. I think part of that is just being a good business partner and being a good team member. One of the things that I've learned in my 4 different industries that I've been in leadership here is that I'm one person of many that will affect these decisions. So I think about how I would work with the people that come to the table. One of the things that I've often learned too is that you have certain people at the table, but you also have to be mindful of those that aren't at the table and be willing to reach out to those individuals and invite them into that conversation. I think at the end of it all, regardless of our previous experience, whether it's political or policy, I think being a good community leader, being a good listener is just as important.
Thank you. Back to the county executive race. Adequate staffing has been a challenge in recent years due to a number of different factors, and this has been the case across all departments in the county. What is your plan to ensure that the county stays properly staffed so that it can, in turn, effectively service the communities and the people of Whatcom County? We'll start with Mr. Sidhu.
Yes, that is a real issue. This issue is not unique to Whatcom County. This issue is unique to all western United States, our neighboring counties, all over state. Right after the COVID in early 2022, we were 10% short. We had approximately 950 employees, and we had almost 100 open positions. It's very difficult to hire the engineers, attorneys, the natural resources people, as well as sheriff's deputies. So it was a difficult situation. People came up with different things that, why don't you offer bonus, why don't you offer more money? But it's not that easy because there are already people who are veterans like Doug, who've been there 29 years or 30 years, and you leave them alone and say, we're gonna hire a new guy and pay him more money. This is the equity thing. And another thing is 80% of the county's workforce is unionized. We have 6 unions. And you do want something for one union, everybody wants the same thing. You know, this is not a 10 or 20 employee company that you can manipulate the situation and say, okay, this is how we're gonna do. We're gonna put $10,000 or $100,000 into that. You cannot do that in a large organization, but we have done that. We have done that. Right now, I think we are probably 10 to 15% short on the, sorry, 10 to 15%, 10 to 15 positions short. Not 10% was 95 positions. So we have done that, and it will take time. And another thing is, you don't want just bodies. As employees, you just hire people. You need very qualified people, and that's hard to find. Thank you.
Mr. Purdy?
This plays right into my strengths because I used to own a staffing and recruiting agency. I was responsible for 5 cities. I ran about 1,100 people, and we had hundreds and hundreds of employers. Those individuals had many things in common, but the one thing that was in common was leadership, and we had strategic vision. People don't want to come and work for county government because they don't see the future and the direction. They can't afford to live here. They don't feel like they can do what in the county they can do at private because they do pay better and they do have better salaries and benefits and such. But I think it's really important to cast the vision first. As I walk around Whatcom County and I meet with individual departments and otherwise, I'm coming up with a recurrent theme. There is a healthy fear of existing leadership. There is no future orientation. It's all about the present and what happens today. I've heard several times that it's whatever is on the desk at the moment. And that's not vision. That's not mission. It's not core values and beliefs. And this is what people need for motivation. There are specific steps that can be taken in order to alleviate the problem. Yes, there are over 900 employees with the county. It's a $271 million budget with 230-some thousand residents. There are unique opportunities to do several things. If you were an employee and you were told that you have to come and use a DOS-based system at work because your county executive is not taking the steps to work within that kind of new technology, you would be appalled. That's a barrier. You would also be really upset if you found out that you didn't have the support of a leader. These are all barriers, and these can be overcome through the proper planning, the proper strategic vision, and the proper qualified executive. I have a Lean Six Sigma black belt, I have an MBA, and I've done this multiple times for my own companies in addition to the clients that we serve today.
Thank you. On to the sheriff's race once again. And we'll start with Mr. Chadwick. Describe your experience working with diverse populations.
Well, obviously the sheriff's office, the sheriff serves all of Whatcom County. It's elected, it's nonpartisan, and it's a countywide organization, not just in one city. Growing up, I grew up in the Mount Baker foothills. I went to Mount Baker High School. I went to school with a lot of people from the Nooksack tribe. They were my friends, they were my classmates, they were my teammates. My daughter actually is dating a member of the tribe currently, and has for quite some time. So I understand not just the people, but I understand their culture. And at the sheriff's office, we've been continuing, we brought in a community outreach coordinator, and we also had a consultant come in and help us form relations with some of those communities that are growing in Whatcom County, like the Hispanic community, the Sikh community, who come from countries that have a very different perspective of law enforcement. They don't respect law enforcement because law enforcement in their country was corrupt. So we have to overcome that, and it's about forming those relationships and having those interactions and those contacts on a regular basis. And I've done that for quite some time, going to the various Sikh temples here in Whatcom County, and meeting the leaders of those temples and talking with them, sharing a meal with them, and just getting to know them and know that just like everybody else, they work very hard, they care about their families, and they care about public safety. Regardless of who you are and where you are, public safety impacts everyone. So we have to continue to reach out to the various communities in Whatcom County and have those conversations and interactions with people that maybe we don't on a regular basis, so that we establish that trust between law enforcement and the communities we serve.
Mr. Tanksley, same question.
So thank you. I've had a lifetime of working with diverse populations. Growing up in St. Louis, the area that I lived in was a very diverse population. In fact, it was literally about 50% black and 50% white. And that's how I grew up. And even from there, in the military, joining the military at 17, and being on a ship with 6,000 people from all over the country, and in fact, all over the world. And my experiences in the military, I've lived in Iceland, I lived in Japan, I lived in Bahrain, I have those international experiences. But also, I have a diverse work experience. Again, I said I worked in St. Louis, and when I left St. Louis, I came to WW as the assistant police chief of that police department. So not just working with diverse people, but working with people from, from China, working with people from different parts of the country, different countries. So this has really been my life's work. In fact, after I left WW, I went down to Portland State, and that's a diverse community as well. As a chief of police, I work in Blaine, so I have a broad experience with working with different people, working in different task force, and in fact, I'm a member of the Whatcom Dispute Resolution Center. I'm on their board, and also a board member of the Mount Baker Foundation. So I've been out in the community, in this community, doing good work for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, if you have any questions to submit, please hold up a card and we will collect that and ask our candidates. All right, we move on to District 5. Once again, there is a proposal for a biofuel plant to be built on Semiahmoo First Nations land just across the border that could potentially impact Blaine and Birch Bay, particularly when it comes to water quality. What are your thoughts on this proposed project, and are there ways to ensure that our water isn't negatively affected? And we'll start with Mr. Ellenboss.
Yeah, cross-border relations are always interesting. I have quite a bit of experience with this. I've been the past president of the Farm Bureau. I've been involved with the Cattlemen's Association for 20 plus years, where I served in leadership there. One of the things that we dealt with often with the Cattlemen's Association was water quality issues and testing throughout the county. Well, one of the things that we found was that in Bertrand Creek, the water that came from Canada was above the levels that we consider clean in the state of Washington. In fact, it was more polluted than any of the other waterways. And trying to deal, as farmers, we were being held responsible for the water quality in that drainage, but the problem was coming from across the border. And trying to deal with the Canadian government and Canadian farmers proved incredibly challenging. I think we see this issue as well when we're dealing with the flooding issues, because the water doesn't really care where the border is. And so there are systems in place that are probably not as robust as they need to be. And I work in industry, and so I have probably a higher level of faith in the way that the regulations apply to industry than probably the general public does. And so I'm confident in our ability to do these things that the community wants, alternative energies, a clean energy transition, and do it in a clean manner that we won't be affecting our neighbors. Because if these are things we want and these are things we need, not in my backyard isn't going to get us there. We need to take responsibility. We're doing it here. We're doing it right here at Cherry Point, and we're doing it clean. And we can hold our neighbors to the north to the same standard, and I believe that they will comply as well.
Ms. Dexter.
Water quality, as being an oyster farmer and someone working on trying to develop a kelp farm, is one of the forefronts of my priorities in my personal life. I actually am part of a team that volunteers on a weekly basis of monitoring the water quality in Drayton Harbor and here in Birch Bay. We also gather mussels to help with biotoxin assessments for Department of Health, and we do phytoplankton tows to monitor the harmful algal blooms. So water quality, as you can understand, is a big priority of mine. And I would like to support the indigenous tribes of Semiahmoo. I would like to support them in maintaining their water quality as well. I applaud industries like biofuel coming into our industry areas, but I think that they need to be smartly placed, and I'm willing to work with any agencies able to. Working cross borders might be kind of difficult on the county side, but I'll do whatever is needed and possible to make those relations happen. And I definitely can promise you I will continue to work in water quality each and every single day.
All right, we have an audience submitted question specifically for Mr. Scanlon. Can you cite the data statistics on the number of folks that transitioned from tiny homes to permanent housing?
Not off the top of my head, but you can find that by going to some of the organizations that run those communities. Road to Home is one of those, the Unity Village, and you'll be able. They've published some of that data. I can't recall it off the top of my head.
Ms. Ortis, what do you feel have been some of the victories for the county council over the last couple of years? Some things that they've done very well. And what do you see as areas for improvement? It's a very broad question.
That is a pretty big question. So, and I'll even have to think about it. Though I've attended every county council meeting for over 2 years now, and I attend a lot of the committee meetings. And I will say that if you haven't been to the committee meetings during the day, I recommend doing it because I think that's where a lot of the magic happens on county council. That's where there's a lot more robust discussion. It doesn't always result in a 3-0 vote on a lot of those committee meetings, but it does give you a lot of insight that each and every one of the council members does have something unique that they bring to the table, and I think that's important to acknowledge, even though I don't always agree with them. I don't even always agree with Ben. Now, where I can think about where they could improve, I'm already saying we. So there's some partisan politics that happens, unfortunately, and I can't say that I always disagree on a 4-3 vote, but what I do find is that when you're dealing with party politics on a nonpartisan position and you're accountable to represent everyone in Whatcom County, I think it's important when that 4 vote comes in, if you know you're going to get all the votes, are you really bringing forward the best resolution for the entire county? I think that's where, even if you agree with the 4-3 vote, I don't think that you're getting the best of what this committee has to offer because they don't often anticipate what other communities or other representatives from other districts are trying to bring forward for their communities. So I see that a lot. We have 3 on the minority that have really, really amazing ideas that could affect all of you in this room, but they don't often get that vote. So one of the things that I'd like to do is really bring a more nonpartisan perspective to the county council.
Thank you. Well, time flies when we're having fun. I've been informed it's time now for our closing statements, and each of you will have 1 minute for your closing statement. And we'll begin once again with Mr. Sidhu.
Thank you. I just want to say that I have the experience of getting elected 3 times, 4 elections. 1 I didn't win. I've been on the council for 5 years. I've been county executive for 4 years. You have never heard any article in the newspaper in the last 4 years. County executive doesn't know what decision to make. County executive is wavering. County executive changed his decisions. Newspaper people are not my friends. I have shown the leadership, I've shown the collaboration, and I will continue to do that in my next term. Thank you.
Newspaper people are exactly his friends. He's just been endorsed by the Cascadia Daily News, which I wear as a badge of honor, by the way. I want to thank you for coming here tonight and learning about the various issues. I stand for public safety, accountability, reducing the cost of living, and more sensible environmental policies. I have a 6-point 100-day plan, which you haven't heard from my opponent. I know from day one how we're going to lead the county into a new direction. Ask yourself one simple question. Are you better off today than before when this man took office?
Well, thank you to the Chamber for hosting. Whatcom County is the only home I've ever known. I believe as your sheriff, you need to understand the community in order to best serve the citizens. I've lived in this county for 53 years. I have that experience plus 29 years of law enforcement experience. You can't replicate that. You can't train that, no matter how hard you try. So I humbly ask for your vote, and I would be proud to serve as your next sheriff. Thank you.
And thank you for coming tonight. So I'm the only candidate here that has any experience leading a law enforcement agency. In fact, I've led 2 law enforcement agencies. Being second in command is not a substitute for actual leading the agency. I spent the last 37 years serving my country and serving urban communities, college campuses, and small towns. I have a breadth of experience, and just my worldly lived experience is unmatchable. I have focused on reducing recidivism and reducing crime in communities and breaking the cycle of incarceration. That's my life's work, and I ask for your vote. Please go to tankforsheriff.com to learn more. Thank you.
I'm not going to give you my typical closing statements because there's so many questions that I feel like weren't appropriately addressed yet. So I'm going to try and address them real quick. One of the main issues I hear from folks in Birch Bay is that Ben, you're our only representative, and I agree with you. People call me, they want me to be the mayor. They call me, they want me to be the city council. They call me, they want me to be the chief of police. The issues that we see in Birch Bay are caused by Whatcom County, and we are unwilling to fix them. Typically, an existing council member, you would say is status quo, but if you watch the council meetings, you will see that I challenge the status quo, and we don't need more of the same. We keep applying the same solutions, expecting it to get better, and it hasn't gotten better. It only gets worse. It's time that we try something different. It's time that we take a balanced approach. Last time I ran, I said we don't need more activists, and a vote for me is not a vote for more of the same. A vote for me is challenging the status quo, which has got us to where we're at.
Ms. Dexter?
I can promise you that I will bring some real-world experience and fresh perspective to the council. All before the age of 18, I had witnessed poverty, abuse, trauma, addiction, and teen homelessness. A lot of these societal issues I have actually witnessed in my little bit of 38 years, all before the age of 18. I have overcome all of those hurdles, so I can be here today to speak for those that have not been spoken for, to speak up for those that need to be lifted up, and to bring those services to the public that needs them desperately. The Birch Bay community deserves a representative that will be present and listen to their needs, and I hope that you vote for Jackie Dexter on November 7th. Thank you.
Ortiz?
So I'm going to give you the short version, but if you need more details, go to hannahforwhatcom.com. So 2 minutes, answers aren't solutions. And I don't have a lot of specific solutions for the problems that we face, but I will tell you this, it's because your voice is part of my answer. So every milestone that I have ever had has been right here in Whatcom County. I'm one of you. I know a third of the people in this room. So as an elected official, I know who I'm accountable to. I'm accountable to each and every one of you and what it is that you expect of your local government, and I would humbly ask for your vote November 7th, before November 7th.
Thanks everyone for coming tonight. You know, my last question was about data and statistics, and I think one thing that folks should look at is the facts in our race. Check out our websites, see who's endorsed us, and check out the party websites. We talked about partisanship and nonpartisanship. My opponent is endorsed by the county's Republican Party. I am endorsed by our county's Democratic Party. That's the truth in every single race you see up here. And there are some realities that folks should look at and should be aware of. And you should also know about my background. In my 20 years of experience in public policy work, I've bridged partisan divides to bring people together in public policy issues. That's something I'll do if elected to Whatcom County Council. We all know who's who and what's what when you take a look. about where people stand, how they voted, and who they're represented by. And you can do your research and figure that out, and I'll bridge that divide and bring people together in county council like I've done my whole career.
Well, as has been mentioned by a couple of the candidates, it was a short evening, much shorter than I know. We could have discussed issues all night long, but we certainly thank you all for being here, and we certainly thank you all for your public service to our citizens. We are going to take a short recess. Again, ballots will be mailed out on October 18th with Election Day on November 7th. Again, a 10-minute recess, and then we'll return with the candidates for the Blaine School District Board, as well as the candidates for the Blaine Birch Bay Park and Recreation District 2 Commissioner seats. So we'll see you in 10 minutes. Thanks again to the candidates.